kill someone that protested, just police kill someone, but someone else can come in and just shoot someone like that. And this is bothering me. We have a country.
Trump has been given multiple opportunities, Virgie, to condemn both that young man who did the killing in Wisconsin and the killing itself. And Trump has declined in all cases to basically condemn that. And I think that tells us basically all we need to know. It's absolutely terrible. Virgie, thank you. Thanks for the call. Maurice in Chicago. Hey, Maurice, what's up?
Hey, God bless you, Thom Hartmann. Shout out to Brother Morris out there in Inglewood. He's on the right track with economics. He's on the right track with the banks. I want to say to you, Guy, I love the way you connected those economic dots with Trump and the way he's doing with all those rich people he's putting in charge of these agencies. We got to do what you did, man. We got to follow the money. We got to connect the dots. We have to do our thing November 3rd. I mean, we have to overwhelm this monstrous voter suppression movement they got going on. Overwhelming vote will negate that. I'm sure of it. The numbers say it.
I agree.
But
I agree, and go ahead.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. The people power, man. People power. But this money thing, Tom, it's what's going on. They're stealing the national treasury right under our eyes, the people's money. And right in the middle of that is Citigroup, Chase, Wells Fargo, and Bank of America. Now, the people have to pay taxes, Tom. There's nothing we can do about that, okay? We have to do that. But those dollars that we have in those aforementioned banks, we can march to those banks, demand our money be given to us, close our accounts, and put a serious dent in this movement that they have. They're trying to globalize, monopolize the money. But the people, just like we use our voting power, we can use our economic power to shut this thing down, Tom. Thank you for listening, brother. I like the way you connect the economic dots, man. Keep it up.
Okay. Maurice, thank you very much. Thanks for the call and your comments. Spot on. Mike in Munster, Indiana. Hey, Mike, what's up?
Yeah, hi, Tom. I was wondering about Trump's comments about the generals profiteering off the wars and that enlisted men are okay for him. And I'm thinking he's trying to sow division in the military. And
yes, he is.
Colonel Larry Wilkerson.
Because he knows the generals know what's going on. I mean, their job is to think strategically. You know, they've been educated in military history. They know how fascism arises. They know how fascists take over countries. They understand all this stuff. The enlisted men, by and large, are basically high school graduates who went through basic training, which was not that kind of training, and probably are not as well informed about exactly who Donald Trump is and what he's up to in the historical context. And so, of course, it's the officer service, the commission service, the officers corps who are looking at Trump with disgust. And you know, among the enlisted men and women, you're seeing. Well, we're seeing, you know, fewer than 50% of them supporting him too. But forgive me, Mike, I interrupted. You were on a roller.
Yeah, no. Colonel Larry Wilkerson did a think tank, a TIP project, I think it was called, gaming out scenarios if Trump tries to stay in power. And his main finding about the use of military, if he goes that route, is just like what you said, the upper officers are not going to follow, but possibly the enlisted would have more support. And his main thing was enlisted men stay in your barracks. You don't have to follow these orders. And I'm thinking after the election, if there's unrest, if he tries to steal it and he calls out the military, he's just fomenting distrust between the enlisted men and the officers and hoping that something will come out of that you know, the military or part of the military will go into the streets and put down unrest, will follow him. And that's what I'm thinking he's gaming out right now, is something for after the election. He's setting the table for a military insurrection. That's my point.
Could be. I I have more faith in our military, frankly, even though I'm not a big fan of giant defense budgets and the way that, more than half of the entire military has now been privatized. More than half of our defense budget does not go to soldiers, sailors, Marines, and airmen, and Coast Guard people. Instead, it goes to giant contractors. But that said, that part of our military that is still, intact and that is still our military, I think, there's a lot of integrity and there's a lot of commitment and there's a lot of loyalty to country. And that's one of the reasons why, revealing in public these things that Trump has said about soldiers is so incredibly destructive to him, because they're the ones who will be called on to be the bulwark here. And I think this is hurting him with them, and I think that that's a good thing, frankly, for the future. Mike, thanks for the call. It's great talking with you. We'll be right back. It's coming up at the top of the hour here. We're going to get into, a whole bunch of more stuff. Seth Abramson is going to drop by and tell us what he thinks is going on with Trump.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
These companies support the Thom Hartmann Program. They are Omaha Steaks, gourmet you can trust. More information at omahasteaks.com, code TOM. CB Distillery, CBD for sleeping. More info at cbdistillery.com, code TOM. The Clean Phone Pro, phone sanitizer and charger. More info at thenewdealshop.com. Plexiderm Wrinkle Reducer, real science, real results. More info at plexiderm.com, code TOM. ExpressVPN, the VPN that just works. More information at expressvpn.com/Tom. And TEEF, TEEF, Smarter Pet Dental Health. For more information, teef.com, code TOM.
Welcome back from your vacation, holiday, hanging around the house, reading a good novel, whatever it may be. It's Tuesday, and we have a match for today from a group of donors who, people who watch us on Free Speech TV, watch Free Speech TV, and care about the future of Free Speech TV, which is just like, so great, so honorable. And Bill and Jane in New Jersey, Mike in Indiana, Suzanne in Virginia, Abdul in California, John and Jean in Oregon, Karen in California, David and Ellen in New York, Mac in Colorado, Bob and Carol in Oregon, and Jeffrey in California. And special thanks and tip of the hat to all of those folks who put together $10,000 so that your gift will be matched, 100% match today only. Whatever you give. You give $5, it becomes 10. You give 50, it becomes 100. You give 500, it becomes 1,000. Excuse me, you give 1,000, it becomes 2,000. Whatever you give, this group of donors is going to match. And that's just great stuff. Because it really is so important that we get this network, that we keep this network going. And, we have Mike in San Francisco who has made a grant or a gift for the entire fundraising drive, where he's covering basically all the expenses of the fundraising drive, things like the people who answer the phones and the database and the accounting and all that kind of stuff. He's covering all those expenses, which means 100% of your gift today and throughout this pledge drive, in fact, 100% of your gift is going to go right to Free Speech TV to be used to keep this network on the air and keep programs like our program going. 100%. And in addition to that, your match, your gift today gets doubled. I mean, it just isn't cooler. You can't get cooler than that. This is good stuff. So please call now. 877-378-8669 is the telephone number. We need your help. Free Speech TV needs your help. We come to you 3 or 4 times a year and basically, lay it on the line. And this is a tough time. We get that. Every politician on earth has their hand out. I'm every single day I'm getting an email from Trump. I'm getting an email from Biden and Harris. I'm getting, dozens of emails from lesser races, as it were, and some of them are pretty important to me. But I figure out a way to help out Free Speech TV, and I know you can too. Even $5 is a big deal. $10, $25, $50. Especially if you're staying home, if you're not eating out as much, maybe you could save the cost of a meal and send it off to Free Speech TV. A meal in a restaurant, $20, $50, whatever it may be. There is a whole selection of premiums with this pledge drive. With a $20 gift, you get your choice of one of 3 different goodies, either the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker. I'm a proud student of the Thom Hartmann University. The Fight for Democracy sticker, or the set of 3 stainless steel straws, so you will never again be disposing of plastic straws in ways that kill sea life. That's kind of cool. With a $50 gift, you get your choice. There are 3 things that you can choose from. Pick one. The Free Speech TV webcam cover, the tote bag, change never happens from the top down, which is, kind of a paraphrase of Margaret Mead's famous saying, or the postcard pack, 5 postcards, Fighting for Democracy postcards. I think you'll find it fascinating. You'll like them. With a $75 gift, there's the Free Speech TV hat, and there's the Thom Hartmann Program white mug. Your choice of one of those with the $75 gift. With a $100 gift, you get 2 face masks that say "What We Can Grow from Crisis." With a $120 gift, you have your choice of a T-shirt, the Ask Me About Free Speech TV T-shirt, or your choice of one of 3 books, either my most recent book prior to the new book, which was The Hidden History of the Republican War on Voting, Greg Palast's book along those same lines, How Trump Stole 2020, or my newest book that literally just came out last week, which is titled The Hidden History of American Monopolies, How Big Business Destroyed the American Dream. And a lot of work went into that book, a lot of solid stuff in there. I think you'll find it very, very interesting. With a $240 gift, we've got a virtual meet and greet. We'll have one on October 14th and one on November 18th, where we'll get together for an hour and I'll answer your questions and we'll just talk. And these are just absolutely so much fun and fascinating and interesting, and you can show up on camera, or you can just show up on a phone call if you prefer, and I'll be there on camera and we can have a conversation. That's a $240 gift for that virtual meet and greet. And with a $360 gift, we've got the complete Thom Hartmann University fall gift box. You get my book on Monopoly, my newest book. You get the Greg Palast book on how Trump stole 2020. You get the Change always comes from the bottom up tote bag. You get the Democracy sticker and the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker. So please call now, 877-378-8669, and make your contribution and help keep this network on the air. Thank you. Pointing out racism to always worse than the actual racism itself. The book, The Tribalization of Politics by Ian Refowitz.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. The Sturgis motorcycle rally, it turns out, is being linked to over 250,000 cases of COVID We know of one death so far, but this was an amazing study that the German-based IZA Institute of Labor Economics did, based on anonymized cell phone data. Anybody can buy the data about, who's where with their cell phones. And they wrote, this is from these researchers, quote, "The Sturgis motorcycle rally represents a situation where many of the worst case scenarios for super spreading occurred simultaneously. The event was prolonged, individuals packed closely together, a large out-of-town population, low compliance with masks. The results are staggering. They're estimating $12 billion that you and I are going to pay in healthcare costs for these guys as a result of this." Meanwhile, Donald Trump keeps rolling along and continues to be unwilling to criticize Russia or Putin or anything, basically any autocrat in the world, but specifically that. And Seth Abramson has a new book coming out, Proof of Corruption, Bribery, Impeachment, and Pandemic in the Age of Trump. It'll be out next month. And I'm sure it's available for pre-order. His previous books, Proof of Conspiracy and Proof of Collusion, he has dropped by our program to talk about. He put together a long Twitter thread, basically, with the premise of, I believe, Proof of Corruption over the weekend. I thought it was spectacular, and he's on the line with us. Seth Abramson. The website is Seth Abramson, ABRAMSON, SETHABRAMSON.net. And of course, Seth Abramson at Twitter is his Twitter handle. So, Seth, tell us why this, this may not actually involve Vladimir Putin, but Trump thinks it does?
Well, Tom, first, thank you for having me. One minor correction. Actually, Proof of Corruption is out today. Everywhere books are sold.
Oh, great.
You can get it if you're interested in reading about it. So with respect to the tweet thread that I did that you were talking about, in 2008, Donald Trump was trying to sell an 8-figure Palm Beach property that he had made improvements to, but he hadn't been able to sell despite these improvements, despite trying to sell it for a long time, and he just wouldn't drop the price because he wanted to more than double his money. This was another example of his obstinance as a businessman and more evidence of his terrible business sense generally. But the upshot in the thread that I did on Twitter is that Donald Trump got rescued in 2008 and got almost 100% of his asking price for this essentially lemon of a property from a Putin ally, Dmitry Rybolovlev. And Trump believed that Rybolovlev was, in fact, a Putin proxy, and that, in fact, he was doing business with Vladimir Putin in 2008. That sale made him $54 million, almost, in fact, more than double what he had put into this property at a time that the economy was tanking. He was facing financial difficulty. And again, he firmly believed that Vladimir Putin had saved him. And so that really...
So this was basically a bailout for him.
Exactly. And it was a bailout, again, a $54 million bailout. But just to be clear, the story doesn't in any sense end in 2008, because when Donald Trump goes to the Miss Universe pageant in Moscow in 2013, he gives an interview to NBC in which he says, "Putin is following my activities. He follows my interviews. He's interested in me." Clearly, this is a carryover from less than 60 months earlier, this deal that he believed he had completed with Putin through Rybolovlev. And at the time that he was in Moscow in 2013, Tom, Putin's chief Kremlin builder, Aras Agalarov, was offering him the richest deal of his life, even better than the 2008 deal. So, of course, Donald Trump thought that Putin was not only interested in his activities, but interested in rescuing him from financial despair, and even more than that, making him into the billionaire that he's always claimed to be.
So why would a billionaire oligarch basically hand Donald Trump a $54 million check, during a major recession when Trump was out of cash and freaking out and maybe looking at another bankruptcy in 2008? Why would a Russian oligarch do that if it wasn't at the direction of President Putin?
Well, that's exactly right, Tom. And that's what we actually learned from both the Mueller report and the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence report, is that Vladimir Putin has that degree of control over his top oligarchs. He can direct them to spend their wealth in a particular way to help the state. Remember, Oleg Deripaska, another oligarch connected to Trump world through Paul Manafort, famously said, "I don't distinguish myself from the state." And that's the sort of state of affairs, no pun intended, that Vladimir Putin enforces. But one reason that Vladimir Putin would do
Seth,
that... Yeah.
I'm sorry. Finish your thought, and then afterwards tell me. I'm sorry. There's a slight delay here when I'm doing the show remotely like this. And also let me know, who was the oligarch who is bailing out Mitch McConnell right now?
So there has been obviously a lot of conversation about Oleg Deripaska's interests in investing in Kentucky, and that's its own sort of separate story. But just to finish the thought that I was mentioning before, is that one of the reasons that Vladimir Putin would do this, and that his oligarchs would understand how important it was to the state and the interests of the state in Russia, is that when Donald Trump went to Moscow in 2013, according to multiple witnesses, he was talking politics the whole time. Specifically, he was saying to people, Putin doesn't respect Obama, Putin respects me. And he felt that the Moscow Miss Universe pageant was a sign of Vladimir Putin's respect, as was, of course, he would have believed this deal that he thought he had done with Vladimir Putin in 2008. So this is when he was formulating his Russia policy in 2013, and he thought, Putin saved me in the past. He's about to pay me again with this Agalarov deal, and if I have the right policy, I'll get paid in the future down the line. And that is the key to the mystery of Trump-Russia collusion. That's why I did a thread about it.
Wow. So we have about 2 minutes left here, Seth. I'm wondering if you can weigh in on this theory that has been put forward by Umair Haque over at Medium.com, that Trump's real goal is to steal the entire country. If he can get himself reelected, he can basically do what Putin and what Erdogan and name your strongman. Put your cronies in charge of everything, and then have a piece of the entire economy be kicked back into your pockets. What do you think? He's trying to steal the country, basically.
Well, that's no question. That's been the transactional model of his entire life as an adult and as a businessman, and that's, in fact, how he's approached politics. He told Michael Cohen famously that his political career was an infomercial for his brand. He has catered to autocrats around the world who act in exactly this way in their own countries, including in Saudi Arabia, in the United Arab Emirates, in Turkey, in Ukraine, in Russia. So clearly, frankly, even in China, with his open collusion with China over alleged Joe Biden dirt back in 2019, and the way he's dealt with Kim Jong-un in North Korea. This is his model. This is what he does. And I don't know why anyone would expect a man in his 70s to suddenly change his stripes and love this country more than himself and more than money now that he's in his 70s. It doesn't make sense, and that's not what we've seen from him for the last 4 years.
What, the three competing theories are, number one, he's trying to stay out of jail. Number two, he's trying to make a little money, and he's trying to, he's profiting off the presidency, basically. But number three, he's trying to steal the whole damn country. Which of those three do you think is the most likely actual key to who Trump is and why he's behaving the way he is?
I think there's some truth to all of it. He appears to be a malignant narcissist, so he wants power. He wants autocratic control over the country. Therefore, he wants to steal in that sense. He's venal. He wants money. That's his primary motivating factor his entire life. So, yes, he's going to use the presidency to, I would say, make more than a little bit of money. I think that when you tally up everything he's made since he's been in office, he's actually done pretty well, especially considering that he's not as rich as he claims to be. So I think all three are true.
Yeah, remarkable. Seth Abramson, his new book, Proof of Corruption, Bribery, Impeachment, and Pandemic in the Age of Trump. It is available to buy now, wherever fine books are found, and SethAbramson.net is Seth's website. And, of course, his Twitter handle, Seth Abramson, Abramson. Thanks a lot, Seth, for dropping by today.
Thanks for having me, Tom.
My pleasure. We'll be right back.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
15 minutes past the hour. What do you think Trump's game is here? We'll be right back. And welcome back. PJ in, is that Suisun City, California? Am I saying it right?
It's too soon, but that's okay. It doesn't matter.
Oh, okay. Okay. So,
I'm concerned with Trump stealing the election, or the Republican Party stealing the election through the use of their electronic voting machines. If you recall, in Detroit, there was a news report shortly after the 2016 election that over 75,000 votes for president magically disappeared from the counted results. And
right.
if I'd like your views on this, because if this is in fact what they plan to do, because ever since Chuck Hagel introduced these electronic machines, right, none of the polls were correct. He won his election when he was 10 points down, and he won by 10 points. So they reversed. Right.
Not only that, Chuck Hagel voting on machine. At the time, Chuck Hagel was the president of ES&S, the voting machine company.
Right.
Those voting machines were installed all across. Was it Kansas? Was the state he was from?
I think it was. It's one of those.
And they were, in any case, they were engaged all the way. They were involved all the way across the state. And he not only won the election, but he won black districts that had never gone Republican, and suddenly they were majority voting for Republican Chuck Hagel. It's kind of mind-boggling. I was writing about this back in 2003, 2004, or 4 and 5.
Well, yeah.
But your point, PJ.
My question is, what can we do about it, and why aren't people more up in arms over this kind of cheating?
Well, I think that there has been an unwillingness, a fear, frankly, among Democrats. This was, when Randy Rhodes and me and I think Stephanie Miller and I'm pretty sure Al Franken wasn't with us, but there was a bunch of us with Air America who went to Washington, D.C. to meet with a group of Democratic senators back around 2000, somewhere between 2004 and 2007. And we met with a group of senators. One of us brought this issue up and said, these electronic voting machines are insecure. They're so bad that they're making jokes about them on The Simpsons. Homer's pushing the Gore button, and it keeps saying, thank you for voting for George Bush. We know that we've got a problem. Why are you guys not raising hell when every single state where the electronic voting machine results are different from the exit polls the voting machine results are saying Republicans won when the exit polls say Democrats won? Why are you guys not raising hell? And this one senator got up and said, we understand this is a problem. We got lawyers looking into it. We got people looking into it. Don't worry. But we don't want to talk about it because we're afraid if people don't think that the elections are going to be safe and secure and legitimate, that they won't go to vote. And we don't want to discourage Democrats from voting. And, it seemed to me at the time like this is absolutely upside down backward logic, and that if the shoe were on the other foot, the Republicans would be screaming bloody murder and election fraud. And the Democrats need to be doing the same. But this has been largely the Democratic Party's policy right up until this election. I think this election is the first one where the Democratic Party is sitting up going, huh? And in large part, that's because of Brian Kemp and Stacey Abrams. And Stacey Abrams has been out there fighting the good fight and raising hell. And Greg Palast has been doing a spectacular job of publicizing it and promoting it. And we've been doing everything we can on our program, which has a pretty good sized audience. According to Talkers Magazine, we're reaching 7 million people. So, we're hoping that this message is getting out. And I think it is. I think it finally is. But PJ, your concern is entirely legitimate. We'll be right back. It's 20 minutes past the hour. The Hartmann Report is a free daily podcast 7 days a week, and you can find our entire 3-hour podcast over at thomhartmann.com. Hi, Thom Hartmann here. In my new book, The Hidden History of Monopolies, How Big Business Destroyed the American Dream, I'll be taking you from the birth of America as a revolt against monopoly, remember the Boston Tea Party, to the largely successful efforts of both Presidents Theodore and Franklin Roosevelt and other like-minded leaders to constrain corporations' monopolistic urges, to the massive changes in the rules of business starting during the Reagan Revolution that have brought us into the cancer stage of capitalism. In the foreword by Ralph Nader, he says, "This is the most important dynamic book on the cancers of monopoly by giant corporations written in our generation." End quote. It's the fourth in my Hidden History series, available where all fine books are sold. And don't forget, democracy is not a spectator sport. Democracy starts with you. Tag, you're it. big event. It's just like, what? And then there's the boat, the flotilla. Louise and I lived on a boat in the Capitol Yacht Club in the Washington Harbor for 7 years. We had a 46-foot Chris Craft Constellation. It was made in 1986. We bought it used. We sold it when we were done. It was good living. It was relatively inexpensive, actually, all things considered. And to live in Washington, D.C., kind of right in the middle of everything. And it was fascinating. We got to know some just wonderful people there. But one of the things I learned, owning a big boat, is that you go slow in a big boat because you got, it's like 30,000 pounds of weight, right? Moving, you move more than 5 miles an hour and you're going to throw a wake out that's going to swamp smaller boats. And that's apparently what happened. And the people in this boat thing in Travis Lake, Texas, the big boats were, everybody apparently was just behaving badly, ignoring distress calls, swamping each other. And it wasn't like, Antifa showed up with big boats. These were Trump humpers who were just, blowing each other off, person by person. So anyhow, I mentioned in the last hour that I was going to talk about what the Democrats need to do right now. And this, I was sharing with you a piece by Umair Haque earlier. This is from eand.co, which is kind of a subpart, I believe, of medium.com. And Umair wrote this brilliant piece. He said, "Take it from us survivors, this isn't how you fight fascism." And writes, to really fight authoritarians and fascists, you have to do three things, none of which Joe Biden is doing. It's not enough to make vague moral appeals. Oh, okay, you guys are misbehaving. You shouldn't be advocating killing people. Stop saying that there's very good people. Don't even bother. He writes, nobody cares in such desperate moments as these for the luxury of morality. People are concerned with self-preservation first and foremost. This is how America got here, how we entered a classic fascist spiral. In 2010, the American middle class, as a result of 30 years of Reaganomics, became a minority. What happens, he writes, when a nation suddenly becomes massively poorer? When 80% of your country live hand to mouth, 75% of your country can't pay all their bills, when the average person dies in debt, well, then life becomes a bitter, brutal struggle, an effort at self-preservation. And the fascists love this. This is the perfect setup for fascist government because they are the peak of politics of self-preservation. That's what they sell. It's those hated minorities, those dirty, filthy subhumans. That's why my life is going nowhere. And Umair writes, this is exactly what happened in America, and that's why morality serves no purpose. In 2016, Trump got into the White House because the secret hate vote came out. Why didn't they show up in the polls? Because people didn't want to admit, white people didn't want to admit that they were voting hate. But morality is not what works. So what do you have to do? When you're fighting fascists, you have to begin by teaching people about the dangers of fascism. That when fascism arises in a society, it always destroys that society. Always. Do you really want to give the most violent, stupid men in society the power to jail and torture your kids? Over what? Hate and fear of black people? You can't appease fascists, Umair writes. You must choose. The middle ground is not an option. If you try to be inoffensive to the fascists, you will lose Trump's silent majority. If, on the other hand, you speak out in a way where you reach that silent majority, you lose the hardened fringe. So basically, this is the choice. There's two people who support Trump. There's the quiet, basically, fearful racists and fearful for their future group. That's the majority of Trump supporters. And then there's a small, hardcore minority who are fascists. And if you start calling Trump a fascist and you start calling the Republican fascist, you're going to piss off that small minority who actually are proudly fascist, the ones who show up with Nazi flags. But you may just get through to enough of the people who are simply afraid for their job to get it. So, when somebody says, oh, Joe Biden's a radical socialist, you don't debate that. You just turn around and say, and Donald Trump is a fascist, and he's taking us down the same path the Nazis did. Umar says, we survivors and you real Americans are simply on different planets. You cannot fight fascism with lightweight moral appeals. You cannot fight it with complaints. You cannot fight it with objections. A collapsing society is a place where morality has gone out the window and life becomes a brutal affair. You must fight fascism by making a simple, tough, serious choice. You must call it fascism.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
He writes, you don't fight a bully by trying to reason with him. You punch him in the nose in a place where everyone can see it. And Joe Biden still hasn't said the word fascism. Welcome back from your vacation, holiday, hanging around the house, reading a good novel, whatever it may be. It's Tuesday, and we have a match for today from a group of donors who, people who watch us on Free Speech TV, watch Free Speech TV, and care about the future of Free Speech TV, which is just like, so great, so honorable. And Bill and Jane in New Jersey, Mike in Indiana, Suzanne in Virginia, Abdul in California, John and Jean in Oregon, Karen in California, David and Ellen in New York, Mac in Colorado, Bob and Carol in Oregon, and Jeffrey in California. And special thanks and tip of the hat to all of those folks who put together $10,000 so that your gift will be matched, 100% match today only. Whatever you give. You give $5, it becomes 10. You give 50, it becomes 100. You give 500, it becomes 1,000. Excuse me, you give 1,000, it becomes 2,000. Whatever you give, this group of donors is going to match. And that's just great stuff. Because it really is so important that we get this network, that we keep this network going. And, we have Mike in San Francisco who has made a grant or a gift for the entire fundraising drive, where he's covering basically all the expenses of the fundraising drive, things like the people who answer the phones and the database and the accounting and all that kind of stuff. He's covering all those expenses, which means 100% of your gift today and throughout this pledge drive, in fact, 100% of your gift is going to go right to Free Speech TV to be used to keep this network on the air and keep programs like our program going. 100%. And in addition to that, your match, your gift today gets doubled. I mean, it just isn't cooler. It can't get cooler than that. This is good stuff. So please call now. 877-378-8669 is the telephone number. We need your help. Free Speech TV needs your help. We come to you 3 or 4 times a year and basically, lay it on the line. And this is a tough time. We get that. Every politician on earth has their hand out. Every single day I'm getting an email from Trump. I'm getting an email from Biden and Harris. I'm getting, dozens of emails from lesser races, as it were, and some of them are pretty important to me. But I figure out a way to help out Free Speech TV, and I know you can too. Even $5 is a big deal. $10, $25, $50. Especially if you're staying home, if you're not eating out as much, maybe you could save the cost of a meal and send it off to Free Speech TV. A meal in a restaurant, $20, $50, whatever it may be. There is a whole selection of premiums with this pledge drive. With a $20 gift, you get your choice of one of 3 different goodies, either the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker. I'm a proud student of the Thom Hartmann University. The Fight for Democracy sticker, or the set of 3 stainless steel straws, so you will never again be disposing of plastic straws in ways that kill sea life. That's kind of cool. With a $50 gift, you get your choice. There are 3 things that you can choose from. Pick one. The Free Speech TV webcam cover, the tote bag, Change Never Happens from the Top Down, which is kind of a paraphrase of Margaret Mead's famous saying. Or the postcard pack, 5 postcards, Fighting for Democracy postcards. I think you'll find it fascinating. You'll like them. With a $75 gift, there's the Free Speech TV hat, and there's the Thom Hartmann Program white mug. Your choice of one of those with the $75 gift. With a $100 gift, you get 2 face masks that say "What We Can Grow from Crisis." With a $120 gift, you have your choice of a T-shirt, the Ask Me About Free Speech TV T-shirt, or your choice of one of 3 books, either my most recent book prior to the new book, which was The Hidden History of the Republican War on Voting, Greg Palast's book along those same lines, How Trump Stole 2020, or my newest book that literally just came out last week, which is titled The Hidden History of American Monopolies, How Big Business Destroyed the American Dream. And a lot of work went into that book, a lot of solid stuff in there. I think you'll find it very, very interesting. With a $240 gift, we've got a virtual meet and greet. We'll have one on October 14th and one on November 18th, where we'll get together for an hour and I'll answer your questions and we'll just talk. And these are just absolutely so much fun and fascinating and interesting, and you can show up on camera, or you can just show up on a phone call if you prefer, and I'll be there on camera and we can have a conversation. That's a $240 gift for that virtual meet and greet. And with a $360 gift, we've got the complete Thom Hartmann University Fall Gift Box. You get my book on Monopoly, my newest book. You get the Greg Palast book on how Trump stole 2020. You get the Change, always comes from the bottom up, tote bag. You get the Democracy sticker and the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker. So please call now, 877-378-8669, and make your contribution and help keep this network on the air. Thank you. Hi, Thom Hartmann here. In my new book, The Hidden History of Monopolies, How Big Business Destroyed the American Dream, I'll be taking you from the birth of America as a revolt against monopoly, remember the Boston Tea Party, to the largely successful efforts of both Presidents Theodore and Franklin Roosevelt and other like-minded leaders to constrain corporations' monopolistic urges, to the massive changes in the rules of business starting during the Reagan Revolution that have brought us into the cancer stage of capitalism. In the foreword by Ralph Nader, he says, "This is the most important dynamic book on the cancers of monopoly by giant corporations written in our generation." End quote. It's the 4th in my Hidden History series, available where all fine books are sold. And don't forget, democracy is not a spectator sport. From, a big bright yellow sun in the sky into this dim kind of golden thing, the reflection of the sun on the Columbia River became kind of brown, a brown gold. The air filled with smoke. We had 50-mile-an-hour winds overnight. In fact, 56-mile-an-hour wind gusts. And it was a wild night here in Oregon. I mean, here in Portland, but it was the entire state. And I think part of Washington State got this windstorm too. And we've got fires on Mount Hood, and there's a half a dozen fires now in Oregon. And that was what was dimming everything out. So the news obviously is being, California and people being trapped by wildfires and things like that is obviously and appropriately sucking up all the news media. But the entire West is on fire. I mean, from Colorado to the Pacific Ocean, from the Canadian border to the Mexican border, there are large chunks of the western United States that are on fire. And this is what you would call early stage global warming. It's here now. We are experiencing it. Twin hurricanes hitting the East Coast. Derecho, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, hurricanes, lines of tornadoes sweeping across Iowa and other Midwestern states, destroying everything in their path, having the impact of a Category 5 hurricane in the middle of the country, something we've almost never before seen. This is early stage global warming. And we need to be paying attention to it, and we need to be talking about it, and it needs to be put in that context. You know, this is like a lifelong smoker and, who's diagnosed with early stage lung cancer. Well, with early stage lung cancer, there's surgery and chemo, and very often you can save the patient. We have early stage global warming, and let's hope we can save the patient. The scientists, we had Michael Mann on this show last week, the scientists are saying there's still a couple of years in which we can do something, but it's going to take a radical something, a big something. So in the context of all that, by the way, with the 55-mile-an-hour winds that we had last night, the power to our studio got knocked out. And so when we came in this morning, we were running around, Sean was running around turning things on and trying to reboot things, and Nate, our video guy who works remotely, was trying to log in and everything, and stuff just wasn't working. And so, thank God for Chase, one of our engineers. He came into the studio and he's finding, what's working and what's not working. And we had some uninterruptible power supplies overnight that apparently weren't uninterruptible enough, because they died. Apparently our power was down for quite some time. And as a result of that, I know if you're watching on Free Speech TV, you missed the first hour of our show. And some of our stations might have gotten, missed parts of our shows. And so I just want to point out, Free Speech TV is in a fundraising drive right now. And there's a $10,000 match and all that kind of stuff. So pay careful attention during those breaks. Because, this is a really important time for them. This is also a really important time for our Pacifica stations. And I don't know if any of them are in fund drives or not right now. I know that some of them will be soon. It's really important, if that's how you get our show, to support them. If you're listening to our show on commercial radio, if you're listening to us on Sirius XM, tell your friends about Sirius XM. You can listen to Sirius XM on an app. You can listen to it on the web. You don't have to have a satellite receiver. You just have to have a subscription. And, it's the only nationwide source for an entire day of good progressive radio programming. And similarly, so please, with SiriusXM and with our commercial stations, we've got commercial stations all over the country. You will hear commercials during the break. Call those advertisers and tell them you're listening. Thank them for supporting that station, even if you're not going to buy their product. Just tell them the truth. Hey, I'm not going to buy a new car this year, but I will tell my friends about your car dealership because you're supporting WCPT or whatever it may be. KTNF or pick it. Right? Pick your station. Because this is a really critical time for progressive media. So my apologies for those of you who, I think the first half hour of our show didn't get through on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, and all that kind of stuff. So, my apologies, but please help us all, keep, not so much us, we're not in a crisis. We just had, a windstorm overnight that knocked out some of our equipment. But, the viability, the long-term viability of progressive media is constantly under attack and constantly living on the edge. So help out however you can. There's a lot of different ways to get our show. They're all spectacular. Tell your friends about them. So let's pick up your calls here. Rudy in Atlanta. Hey, Rudy, what's up?
Hey, how you doing, big fella?
I'm good.
There's so many things that I could talk about as you say your things, and I'm waiting, and I'm like, wow. But, climate is the thing that we really need to be focused on, and we're up here dealing with this guy. Tom, we go back to this day in April. I think it's April 7th, in which they were saying about when they came out and was telling about who this thing is actually killing.
Right.
Tom, you can't legislate hate. There's nothing you can do about hate, and in this country, we're going to
actually, Rudy, you can.
Well.
You can. You can pass laws against hate crime. The hate crimes laws have been somewhat effective. You can prosecute people for those. You can't rip hate out of people's hearts, if that's what you're saying. Although I think that with a good educational program, maybe you can. But back to you, Rudy. I'm sorry. I should have just.
You know what? No, but you're right. No, but you're right, Tom. But the question is, will we have the will to do so? Because
there you go.
Now you're talking about actually going and digging into the conscience of this country and actually doing the right thing. And do you have the courage to actually hear the truth and go back and reform? I mean, that's a heavy lift.
Mm-hmm.
We have, I mean, because Tom, if you really look at where we are, there's no gray area as to where we need to go. As to whoever votes for Trump, there's no gray area. There is no gray area. In my mind, there are no swing voters. When I was talking to the screener earlier, Tom, I ran the 2 truck drivers this morning, and these 2 particular guys looked at me with disdain because I had a mask on. And, my question is, are these guys, are they comfortable knowing that this virus is killing people of color? Or it boggles my mind, Tom, as to why these guys have a disdain for doing something that's going to keep the public safe. I cannot wrap my mind around that.
Here's what they believe, Rudy, and if you tune into some of the right-wing channels that are available to you as you travel across the country, you will hear this, I'm sure. I have heard it. I listen to these guys from time to time, and basically what they're saying is, number one, this disease, this is, their sales pitch is that this disease is principally killing older people and black people and some Hispanics. Basically people of color and old folks. And the people you're talking about are young and middle-aged white guys. And they think that they're immune because they internalize that message. And have been since, as you pointed out, April 7th was the day that it hit the news, and April 9th, 10th, and 11th were the days that all the big, business organizations, Chamber of Commerce, and all these other guys, and the Trump campaign all came out and started yelling, "We got to open the country back up," meaning white people's country, and put those servers back to work. I think that's what it is, Rudy. I get the same thing. Louise and I, when we go on our daily walk, almost every day we encounter somebody who's not wearing a mask. My wife has turned into the mask Nazi. I used to do the passive aggressive cough at people, but she just is confronting them. She's like, "You're not wearing a mask. Get away from me." And it's like, and we had a guy yesterday yelling back at us saying, "You don't belong here." And I'm like, what the hell? What does that mean?
Well, Tom, let me say this, and I'm gonna end this. Those of us that are listening, if we know better, we must do better because we have a heavy lift, Tom. We have to find some kind of way within our soul to connect with people that just don't understand what's going on, because this is not about religion or politics. This is about survival. And if we don't pull this together, then we're all going to be extinct, because I really believe the climate, this thing that's happening over in California, I have people that live in California, Tom, and I'm telling you, they're scared. They're talking about moving over to Georgia. And it's
I was on the phone with some people in Colorado over the weekend. They're saying the same thing. They got fires just up the road from them. So
take care, Tom.
A lot of concern. Yeah, good to hear from you, Rudy. It's always good to hear from you. Thanks a lot for the call. And, keep on trucking safely. It's 45 minutes past the hour. We will be back with more of your calls and more of the news of the day here on the Thom Hartmann Program. And coming up at the top of the next hour, Nancy Altman is going to be with us. We're going to be discussing how Donald Trump is trying to kill Social Security. And can he do it?
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archives.
And lest you think Social Security is not your issue because you're 25 years old, Social Security is a multi-million-dollar insurance policy for you right now in case you get disabled. And welcome back. Alfredo in Mountain View, California. Hey, Alfredo, what's on your mind today?
Yeah, hi, Tom. Thank you for taking my call. Tom, I wanted to ask you, is it possible for Attorney General Barr to use his power to declare all the mail-in ballots illegal or fraudulent and hand the election to Trump? And also, I'm sorry that I'm compounding this, but why is it that the Democratic, I don't know what the name of the committee is, that is investigating the Postal Service, the Joy guy, why is it that they don't fire this guy?
They don't have Congress doesn't have the power to fire him. He is an employee of the executive branch, and actually, he's an employee of the Postal Board of Governors, who are appointed by the president. Trump appointed all the people on the Board of Governors, and they have the sole hiring and firing power for the Postmaster General, excuse me. With regard to your question, and so, we have what we have here. Alfredo, with regard to your question about Bill Barr, that's a damn good question. Voting, because of the 10th Amendment, voting is run by the states. And the states decide, what is a legitimate vote, what isn't, whose vote gets counted, who doesn't, who can vote, where, when, under what circumstances. All that stuff is decided by the states. Although there are some federal standards. They were laid out in 1993 in the Motor Voter Act, but they have to do mostly with just who can sign up to vote. So I'm not sure, because Barr is the chief federal law enforcement officer. And federal law, in some cases, does preempt state laws, but I don't see how Barr would have the power to do that. Maybe I'm wrong, and somebody will call and correct me. That often happens. So we'll see. But I don't know. Dave in Las Vegas. Hey, Dave, what's up?
Thank you, Mr. Hartmann. I'm hearing a lot on the street about this conspiracy theory about how the coronavirus infection rate is overblown. That the numbers, they're setting the numbers higher than and they're like blaming, like someone gets in a car accident and they say, they blame it on the coronavirus.
Yeah.
Okay, but I just kind of wanted
that would not happen, Dave. If somebody got in a car accident and had coronavirus, it probably would not be counted as a coronavirus death. But it has to be a cause of death, not a comorbid condition. But the fact of the matter is, when you look at deaths that have not been diagnosed, but are unusual, right? There's kind of baseline of background deaths that happen in every state that are predictable from year to year to year, that include heart attacks and strokes and people just dying of old age at home and all this kind of stuff, the accidents. That number is fairly stable. Well, as COVID comes into a state, that number starts going up. And a lot of those folks are not being diagnosed with COVID because they're just dead and they take them off to the morgue. And they're not doing that. So actually, the most scientists will tell you that the actual count is much higher than what the official count is. Now, what these scam artists are telling you is because only 8,000 or 9,000 death certificates actually say that the person only died of COVID. Because the way that COVID kills you is it stops your heart, it fills up your lungs. So typically it's lung failure and COVID, or it's heart failure and COVID, or it's, massive embolism or stroke and COVID, because that's how COVID kills you. It's not the only thing on the death certificate. It's a BS argument, Dave. It's really not, it's a lie is what it is. And Trump has promoted it. The hidden history of the Supreme Court tells the story of Nixon and Reagan's committing treason to steal the White House. Welcome back. 10 minutes before the hour. Sandra in Dundee, Illinois. Hey, Sandra, what's up?
My question is, what can we do to get rid of the Electoral College?
There is an organization and a website, and it's called nationalpopularvote.something.com or org. And what the program is, because technically the only way to get rid of the Electoral College, because it's written into the Constitution, is to amend the Constitution. That takes 2/3 of all senators, 2/3 of all members of the House, and 3/4 of all the states. And it's only happened 29 times in the history of the country, while there's been like 30,000 attempts to amend the Constitution. So that's going to be a stretch. But if states representing more than 270 electoral votes come out and say, we will throw our electoral votes, regardless of who wins in our state, we will throw all of our electoral votes to whoever wins the national popular vote, which would have been Al Gore in 2000, it would have been Hillary Clinton in 2016, then the Electoral College becomes irrelevant. So far, they've got states representing, as I recall, 234 or 243 or something like that. I mean, they're 3/4 of the way there, but they need a couple more big states or a whole bunch of smaller states to sign on. No, to the best of my knowledge, no Republican-controlled state has signed on to this. The Republicans are totally opposed to the majority of Americans electing the president. You've got, they love the Electoral College because much like the Senate, it's not democratic. 50 million more people voted for Democrats for the U.S. Senate in the last election than voted for Republicans. And yet the Senate is still in Republican hands because of the whole small state thing. Well, those senators also represent Electoral College votes, and that's why the Republicans love the Electoral College. But get over to National Popular Vote, and you'll see what you can do and how you can tell your legislators about it. And Virginia just joined just a few months ago, so it's getting better every day. Sandra, thanks. That was a great question. Steve in Zimmerman, Minnesota. Hey, Steve, what's up?
Hey, Tom. I was just wondering, what is the penalty for violating the Hatch Act, and has anybody ever incurred it?
I don't know off the top of my head. It's not huge. My recollection is it's a fine that's probably less than $10,000 and 6 months to a year in jail. But that's just I'm just running from memory. But it's one of those fairly light fines. But then if you have repeated instances of it, it could add up. Whether anybody's ever gone to jail for the Hatch Act, I don't know. That's a good question. That's something to plug into a search engine and ask. But I certainly would like to see some people going to jail for violating the Hatch Act. It is high time. Steve, thanks for the call. Paul in Woodinville, Washington. Hey, Paul, what's up?
Yeah, Tom, you had a caller who said you can't legislate hate, and I know you said, yes, you can, and I agree with you, and so I wanted to expound upon that and riff on that a little bit, if you don't mind. Yeah, you absolutely can legislate against hate, and you can legislate morality. And if you look at it this way, hate grows where there's an environment for it to grow. And it's kind of like, in your body, you have cancer cells that pop up all the time, and they get defeated by your immune system. And so there's always going to be some hate in your society. But if there's not a legislative or not an environment where the hate can grow, like we have now, we have a president who encourages it, and so is creating an environment where, the disease can grow. Well, of course, it's growing. But you can make laws. I think the hate crime laws do work. There are laws that you can make. And you can also legislate morality, where people say you can't. And we absolutely do legislate morality. We legislate absolute morality, like lying, moral questions that there is no other side of the argument. For instance, nobody argues that lying, there's no good argument for lying. So we have laws against lying. If you lie in court, you'll be found guilty of perjury. Now, if you take something like abortion, you see what that is. That's two relative moral questions. The first one being a religious question that killing is wrong. The other one is a constitutional question, which is, what about the freedom of personal choice? Those are two relative moral questions set against each other. And the reason that
they're both overlaid with the moral question of when does life start.
But in the oral arguments of Roe versus Wade, Potter Stewart asked the question where the Wade side lost, and he said, what kind of question is the abortion question? And he threw out a bunch of possibilities. And what the Wade team said is it's all of those. And that's where he lost, because Potter Stewart was getting across that the court decides on constitutional questions, not philosophical and moral, and only constitutional questions. And that's why they lost. That's why Wade lost, because the constitutional question only considers the right to privacy and personal choice, not the religious and moral questions. That's not what the Constitution necessarily addresses. Doesn't say you can't, but the moral, when you set the question of choice, personal choice and privacy up against the religious question of it, and you can't just say it's murder, because murder itself is a definition of law. Because killing is broken up into many categories. There are times when killing is okay, and there's times when it isn't. But to call abortion murder is begging the question, because murder is a definition of law, and abortion doesn't fit under that definition. So, yeah, we do legislate morality and hate. We can and we should.
Well, and the Republican Party and a lot of conservatives are aggressively trying to legislate morality. They're trying to legislate, what they view as immoral gay conduct, as immoral abortion conduct. In some cases, they're immoral drug use. Keep marijuana illegal. All those kind of things. I mean, yeah, I'm with you.
But the difference is they always set up their morality arguments against another relative question, and that has to do with the relative personal liberties of an individual under the Constitution. That's what's wrong with their moral arguments. Is, like I said, absolute morality. Nobody's arguing against that lying is good. Nobody makes that argument.
Yeah, amen. Paul, thank you. Thank you for the call. We'll be back. We're going to get into Donald Trump's war on and the banksters and frankly the entire Republican Party's 90-year war now, 100-year war on Social Security. No, 90, roughly 85 years, I guess. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
These companies support the Thom Hartmann Program. They are Omaha Steaks, gourmet you can trust. More information at omahasteaks.com, code TOM. CB Distillery, CBD for sleeping. More info at cbdistillery.com, code TOM. The Clean Phone Pro, phone sanitizer and charger. More info at thenewdealshop.com. Plexiderm Wrinkle Reducer, real science, real results. More info at plexiderm.com, code TOM. ExpressVPN, the VPN that just works. More information at expressvpn.com/Tom. And TEEF, TEEF, Smarter Pet Dental Health. For more information, teef.com, code TOM.
We say fight back!
Welcome back from your vacation, holiday, hanging around the house, reading a good novel, whatever it may be. It's Tuesday, and we have a match for today from a group of donors who, people who watch us on Free Speech TV, watch Free Speech TV, and care about the future of Free Speech TV, which is just like, so great, so honorable. And Bill and Jane in New Jersey, Mike in Indiana, Suzanne in Virginia, Abdul in California, John and Jean in Oregon, Karen in California, David and Ellen in New York, Mac in Colorado, Bob and Carol in Oregon, and Jeffrey in California. And special thanks and tip of the hat to all of those folks who put together $10,000 so that your gift will be matched, 100% match today only. Whatever you give. You give $5, it becomes 10. You give 50, it becomes 100. You give 500, it becomes 1,000. Excuse me, you give 1,000, it becomes 2,000. Whatever you give, this group of donors is going to match. And that's just great stuff. Because it really is so important that we get this network, that we keep this network going. And, we have Mike in San Francisco who has made a grant or a gift for the entire fundraising drive, where he's covering basically all the expenses of the fundraising drive, things like the people who answer the phones and the database and the accounting and all that kind of stuff. He's covering all those expenses, which means 100% of your gift today and throughout this pledge drive, in fact, 100% of your gift is going to go right to Free Speech TV to be used to keep this network on the air and keep programs like our program going. 100%. And in addition to that, your match, your gift today gets doubled. I mean, it just isn't cooler. You can't get cooler than that. This is good stuff. So please call now. 877-378-8669 is the telephone number. We need your help. Free Speech TV needs your help. We come to you 3 or 4 times a year and basically, lay it on the line. And this is a tough time. We get that. Every politician on earth has their hand out. I'm every single day I'm getting an email from Trump. I'm getting an email from Biden and Harris. I'm getting dozens of emails from lesser races, as it were, and some of them are pretty important to me. But I figure out a way to help out Free Speech TV, and I know you can too. Even $5 is a big deal. $10, $25, $50. Especially if you're staying home, if you're not eating out as much, maybe you could save the cost of a meal and send it off to Free Speech TV. A meal in a restaurant, $20, $50, whatever it may be. There is a whole selection of premiums with this pledge drive. With a $20 gift, you get your choice of one of 3 different goodies, either the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker. I'm a proud student of the Thom Hartmann University. The Fight for Democracy sticker, or the set of 3 stainless steel straws, so you will never again be disposing of plastic straws in ways that kill sea life. That's kind of cool. With a $50 gift, you get your choice. There are 3 things that you can choose from. Pick one. The Free Speech TV webcam cover, the tote bag, Change Never Happens from the Top Down, which is, kind of a paraphrase of Margaret Mead's famous saying, or the postcard pack, 5 postcards, Fighting for Democracy postcards. I think you'll find it fascinating. You'll like them. With a $75 gift, there's the Free Speech TV hat, and there's the Thom Hartmann Program white mug. Your choice of one of those with the $75 gift. With a $100 gift, you get 2 face masks that say "What We Can Grow from Crisis." With a $120 gift, you have your choice of a T-shirt, the Ask Me About Free Speech TV T-shirt, or your choice of one of 3 books, either my most recent book prior to the new book, which was The Hidden History of the Republican War on Voting, Greg Palast's book along those same lines, How Trump Stole 2020, or my newest book that literally just came out last week, which is titled The Hidden History of American Monopolies, How Big Business Destroyed the American Dream. And a lot of work went into that book, a lot of solid stuff in there. I think you'll find it very, very interesting. With a $240 gift, we've got a virtual meet and greet. We'll have one on October 14th and one on November 18th, where we'll get together for an hour and I'll answer your questions and we'll just talk. And these are just absolutely so much fun and fascinating and interesting, and you can show up on camera, or you can just show up on a phone call if you prefer, and I'll be there on camera and we can have a conversation. That's a $240 gift for that virtual meet and greet. And with a $360 gift, we've got the complete Thom Hartmann University Fall Gift Box. You get my book on Monopoly, my newest book. You get the Greg Palast book on how Trump stole 2020. You get the Change, always comes from the bottom up, tote bag. You get the Democracy sticker and the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker. So please call now, 877-378-8669, and make your contribution and help keep this network on the air. Thank you. Sees Russia under Putin as a weak and declining power. The book, The Russia Trap.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. On the line with us is the president of Social Security Works, the chair of the Strengthen Our Social Security Coalition, author of 3 books about Social Security, Nancy Altman. The website socialsecurityworks.org. Her Twitter handle is Nancy Altman 5, number 5, or at SSWorks. Nancy, welcome back to the program. I understand that that Donald Trump issued an executive order that could lead to the death of Social Security, or at least the Social Security Trust Fund, within 3 years. Do I have that right?
You have that right. The death of Social Security. He has taken an action that's never before been taken in the 85-year history of the program, unilaterally unprecedented, and he more than his action. When he took the action, he stated that if reelected, he would do more of the same, and that will lead to literally the end of Social Security as we know it.
Do you think that he did this in order to get Wall Street to give him more money?
Well, that could be. I think the reason he did it is the reason that a lot of the conservative elites misunderstand the program. They don't need Social Security. They don't understand how important it is to virtually all of us, that we all contribute to it. And they see it as simply a tax. You know, they can make it on their own. They see it as a tax. And they figure, oh, who doesn't want a tax cut? And so they don't understand that these are premiums we all pay as part of our earned benefits.
Right. So your FICA tax is not really a tax. It's a premium that you're paying. And Trump is saying, we're going to stop you from paying the premiums on your insurance. And of course, when you stop paying premiums on your insurance policy, the insurance policy goes away. Nancy, I've told the story many times of my friend Michael Hutchison, who in his 40s was out jogging in Santa Fe in the winter and going over a small bridge over a river. He tripped on some ice, fell over the edge of the bridge into the river, broke his neck, and spent the rest of his life, he died just a few years ago, spent the rest of his life paralyzed from the neck down. Social Security paid for everything. They paid for his housing, they paid for his food, they sent a nurse every day to turn him over and clean him up and do all this kind of stuff. I mean, without Social Security, he would have been dead, by the side of the road kind of thing. And I don't think most young Americans realize that Social Security isn't just for people over 65. Social Security is an insurance policy that you literally can't buy in the marketplace. It is so comprehensive. It is so complete. It's a lifetime policy. I had one of my cousins gave birth to a child with spina bifida, who was profoundly retarded and disabled her entire life. She lived until she was in her early 20s and then died from her spina bifida. And again, Social Security came in and helped that family remain whole. How do we convey this to young people that my cousin was in her 20s when this happened? How do we convey this to people that this thing doesn't the spin is always, oh, it's just old people. How do we
I think you're exactly right. And let me offer you one more story, and that is a colleague of ours who works for Paralyzed Veterans of America. He's a millennial. He never thought about Social Security, believed all of the nonsense that it wouldn't be there and all of that, and was serving our country, had an accident, wound up in a wheelchair, and he will say that he would have been homeless without Social Security's disability benefits. So it's really important for all of us to realize the good news. I mean, and actually back to your question about Wall Street, Social Security is extremely efficient. More than 99 cents of every dollar gets paid for benefits, less than a penny of every dollar for administration, which you cannot find in the private sector. And you know how much of that money goes to Wall Street? Zero. So that is why Wall Street is dying to get its hands on the trillions of dollars that run through Social Security. But I think it's really important to get the word out. The good news is that although the younger you are, the less likely you are to believe that it's going to be there for you. And as we just have said, it's there for you right today. But if you ask a follow-up question, do you think then we should get rid of it? They say no, because even if millennials don't think or younger people don't think they're going to get it themselves, they know their parents get it, their grandparents, their other colleagues.
And they don't want to have to open up a room in their house for those folks.
Exactly. And that's what it was before Social Security. People routinely moved in with their adult children. And today, it's people have the choice; they can live independently, and it's a program that works, which is why the conservatives hate it so much, because it puts the lie to the idea that the private sector can do everything better than the government. Social Security is far superior to private life insurance, private disability insurance, and private retirement annuities.
Right, because nobody's trying to skim 20% off the top, first of all.
Exactly.
Secondly, nobody, they don't have and they don't have an army of claims adjusters whose main job is to figure out reasons to throw you off the policy, as all these for-profit companies do. I mean, they do, obviously, they're looking for fraud and things like that, but
but they don't have. It's not a high-paid CEO that you've got in the private sector. There's no profit motive. You don't have to go out and pay money into advertising and all of that. It is run by civil servants, and it is run very efficiently.
We're talking with Nancy Altman, the president of Social Security Works, chair of the Strengthen Our Social Security Coalition, and the author of 3 books about Social Security, socialsecurityworks.org. Nancy, for those who are, wonks on this issue in the 2 minutes or so that we've got left, describe exactly what it is that Donald Trump did with this executive order and how and what the consequences would be if he gets reelected and fulfills his promise to make it permanent.
Well, about 90% of Social Security's revenue comes from the premiums employees pay and matched by the employers. So Trump, who hates Social Security, has called it a Ponzi scheme, despite his, I'll never cut it. Every one of his budgets proposed cuts to Social Security. It's a starve the beast tactic. It's, the idea of you shrink the government till you can drown it in the bathtub. That's what he wants to do to Social Security. He tried to get Congress as part of the COVID package. He said he'd veto it if they didn't cut these premiums. And even the Republicans said, hey, we can't do that right before an election. We're raiding Social Security. So he did it on his own. He couldn't cut them, but what he could do is defer them. The same way that the IRS deferred income taxes from April 15th to July 15th. He said, okay, the amount that's owed for Social Security withdrawals, we're going to postpone that till the end of the year. And if I get elected, we're going to get rid of those. So in the short term, it's a 4-month delay. Even the Chamber of Commerce doesn't like it. It's completely inadministrable. They're using the federal employees as guinea pigs. So they're going to get a small increase now, and then they're going to have to pay double in January. And it's giving employers a tax-free loan. But the real danger is what he says if he gets reelected. This election is crucial for Social Security. The Democrats, thanks to Bernie Sanders, are all for expanding Social Security and making those at the very top, the millionaires and billionaires, pay more. And Donald Trump and the Republicans want to end Social Security.
Amazing. You can read all about it at socialsecurityworks.org. Nancy, you can tweet her at Nancy Altman, number 5. Nancy Altman is the president of Social Security Works. She's also written 3 brilliant books about Social Security. I encourage you to check those out. Nancy, thanks so much for dropping by.
Thank you so much for having me.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
We will be right back. It's 15 minutes past the hour here on the True People's Media, the Thom Hartmann Program, back with your calls and more of the news of the day. Stick around. And welcome back. Let's see here. Carl in Lake Stevens, Washington. Hey, Carl, what's on your mind today? Thanks for watching us on Facebook.
Hi, Tom. You were speaking of fascism earlier, and I noticed Friday a representative from New Hampshire, a state representative, James Spillane, posted a public service announcement, and it's real short. I'll read it. If you see a BLM sign on a lawn, it's the same as having the porch light on for Halloween. You're free to loot and burn the house. This is on his Facebook page. It made the local media. And keep in mind, he's an elected lawmaker from the state of New Hampshire. Now, he's a white Republican, NRA guy, far-right religious guy. But his post was taken down, but it received likes and smiley faces, of course. But the Republicans say explain meant no harm. But I just wondering, how he gets away with this stuff. He should be in jail. He should be kicked out of the state, his state office. I mean, I just wonder what your thoughts are on that.
Well, I wouldn't send him to jail for that, but I would strip him of any position within any political party. I mean, that's outrageous. And, but sadly, I mean, this is, number one, Mark Zuckerberg, who is the majority owner of Facebook and basically rules it like a little king, has made these decisions. I mean, they kicked me off Facebook for a while until I raised enough hell. He's made these decisions that Facebook is going to be basically the cesspool of the hard right. And, an authoritarianism and racism. And it is. Facebook has been, used by dictators all over the world to cement their power. And so you've got that problem. And then on top of that, you've got, the problem of we've got a racist in the White House who's fomenting this kind of stuff and agitating it and cranking it up. And so when people like this go nuts with us, it shouldn't surprise us. Carl, thanks for the call. Thanks for the heads up. That's a grim story. Nikki in Joplin, Missouri. Hey, Nikki, what's up?
Hi, Tom. I have a comment and a question. The woman that won the primary in Georgia, she's a QAnon, and she posted a picture of a gun pointed at Nancy Pelosi. I think she should be kicked to the curb. And what are the Republicans going to do when these people start being in Congress? This is quite dangerous. We're already in a dictatorship, and now we've got this, and people call them crazy sometimes. I call them dangerous. And I want to know what you think some of the Republicans are going to do when they're in Congress with them.
Well, I think that we can tell part of the answer to that, Nikki, by looking at what Republicans did when similar people were in Congress. Michelle Bachmann was in Congress, when Steve Kim was in Congress from Iowa. People who were openly racist, openly homophobic, openly hateful toward many of our fellow brothers and sisters, family members, aunts, uncles, mothers, fathers, sons, and daughters. The Republican Party basically stood back and said, "Oh, I'm sorry, there's nothing we can do." The guy who yelled, "You lie" at Obama. "Oh, I'm sorry, we can't do anything. Yeah, it's bad manners. It's terrible."
Well, I feel
don't
like
expect
we're
they're going to
living
do
in Germany in the 1930s. I really do.
I think we're living through a very similar time, Nikki. I really do. I agree with you. I think fascism is a real thing, and thank you, Nikki, and we need to be calling it out. It's 20 minutes past the hour. We'll be right back. Daily rants and weekly op-eds at HartmannReport.com. It's free and there's no ads. HartmannReport.com. Hi, Thom Hartmann here. In my new book, The Hidden History of Monopolies, How Big Business Destroyed the American Dream, I'll be taking you from the birth of America as a revolt against monopoly. Remember the Boston Tea Party? To the largely successful efforts of both Presidents Theodore and Franklin Roosevelt and other like-minded leaders to constrain corporations' monopolistic urges, to the massive changes in the rules of business starting during the Reagan Revolution that have brought us into the cancer stage of capitalism. In the foreword by Ralph Nader, he says, "This is the most important dynamic book on the cancers of monopoly by giant corporations written in our generation." End quote. It's the fourth in my Hidden History series, available where all fine books are sold. And don't forget, democracy is not a spectator sport. Democracy starts with you. Tag, you're it. Welcome back. 21 minutes past the hour. Thom Hartmann here with you. And the there's a remarkable, Mark Sumner over at Daily Kos wrote up a piece called 10 Things Donald Trump Has Done that are at least as bad as calling veterans losers. And from the number 10 to number 1, number 10, Donald Trump attempted to extort lies from a foreign government to gain a political edge over Joe Biden. Of course, that would be Ukraine. He was impeached for it, but he was not removed from office, and now he apparently thinks he can keep on doing this. Number 9, Trump refused to act after Mohammed bin Salman, what was his first name? Mohammed bin Salman kidnapped, tortured, dismembered, and murdered Washington Post columnist Jamal Khashoggi. And by the way, over the weekend, the Saudi court finally decided which of the patsies of MBS's patsies they were going to put to death, and then they commuted their death sentences. But Mark Sumner writes, the assassination came after Jared Kushner, in the White House, provided a top-secret list of dissidents to bin Salman. And that list may have featured Khashoggi's name. And then Kushner got a last-minute billion-dollar bailout for his failing real estate company right out of the Middle East. Isn't that sweet? Number 8, Trump dealt with the accountability crisis by getting rid of inspectors general. Did you know he's fired or replaced 17 inspectors general? These are the people, this was a law created by Congress back in the 70s after the Nixon bribery scandals that basically said if something corrupt is going on inside one of these federal agencies, be it the EPA, the Department of Interior, the Department of Treasury, the IRS, pick your poison, there will be somebody who is, like on the TV cop shows, is like internal affairs, who can do something about it. Well, Trump has gotten rid of 17 of these people. And when in the few cases where he hasn't removed them and they're saying, hey, there's something going on wrong here, he just ignores it. Number 7, Trump has handed out pardons for his pals even when they're clearly guilty. Case in point, Roger Stone. Number 6, Trump regularly encourages police and others to use violence. Remember when he was doing a rally for chiefs of police? And he says you should rough up the protesters. Stop being too nice when you make arrests. And, functionally, he's directly responsible, Sumner writes, for encouraging people to go out and commit murder in his name. And I would say, yeah. From the guy who lived in the van in Florida and sent pipe bombs to all the leadership of the Democratic Party, I think his name was Cesar Sayoc, to this 17-year-old kid whose mother drives him up to Wisconsin so that he can shoot some people, which he does. It's astonishing. I mean, why else would you drive your 17-year-old to another state with an AR-15 if you didn't expect he might shoot somebody? Number 5, Trump is still overlooking Russia's offer of bounties for the murder of U.S. troops. Number 4, Trump's wall still doesn't exist. Yeah, he's built 3 miles of it. He keeps saying 300 miles. They refurbished 297 miles of that wall. They're constantly doing that. The wall, just like any infrastructure, falls apart and needs to be replaced. So we've replaced 297 miles. We've added 3 new miles of wall. Trump is still bragging that he's got his wall and Mexico's paying for it. No, Mexico's not paying for it either. But the bottom line is, the whole wall thing is just, Trump saying racism and xenophobia. Be afraid of foreigners, be afraid of brown people. Number 3, Donald Trump is a white supremacist who has encouraged racism at every turn, whether it's talking about good people on both sides in Charlottesville, when the good people were saying, Jews will not replace us, you will not replace us. Blood and soil, which was the slogan in Hitler's Germany. And now he's running as an open racist candidate saying, white people in suburbs, I'll prevent black people from moving into your neighborhood. He's literally saying that. Number 2, Donald Trump put children in cages out of a desire to ramp up cruelty. The cruelty was actually the point. They thought it would scare people away from coming to the United States. Him and Stephen Miller put this thing together. We had Jacob Sovorov on this program twice about this. This is just, it's both a moral and political crime. I think it's also a legal crime. And number one, Donald Trump deliberately allowed COVID-19 testing to fail in order to conduct genocide. Genocide, you say? Yes, we now know that there was a meeting in the White House prior to the April 7th news report, which had the White House putting together a plan for national testing, mobilizing testing, using the Defense Procurement Act to get testing to everybody in America to help solve this problem so that America, like Canada, like Europe, like Asia, could get ahead of the curve. And when the word came out that most of the people dying and infected were black and brown people because they're the frontline workers, at that point, Trump said, oh, hey, black people are dying, brown people are dying, not so many white people. Screw the program. We're not going to put a penny into this. Yes, genocide. I don't know what else you can call it. We'll be back with your thoughts on all this right after this break. It's 28 minutes past.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
We will get through this, my friends. America has been through much worse in its past. Despair is not an option. Welcome back from your vacation, holiday, hanging around the house, reading a good novel, whatever it may be. It's Tuesday, and we have a match for today from a group of donors who, people who watch us on Free Speech TV, watch Free Speech TV, and care about the future of Free Speech TV, which is just like, so great, so honorable. And Bill and Jane in New Jersey, Mike in Indiana, Suzanne in Virginia, Abdul in California, John and Jean in Oregon, Karen in California, David and Ellen in New York, Mac in Colorado, Bob and Carol in Oregon, and Jeffrey in California. And special thanks and tip of the hat to all of those folks who put together $10,000 so that your gift will be matched, 100% match today only. Whatever you give. You give $5, it becomes 10. You give 50, it becomes 100. You give 500, it becomes 1,000. Excuse me, you give 1,000, it becomes 2,000. Whatever you give, this group of donors is going to match. And that's just great stuff. Because it really is so important that we get this network, that we keep this network going. And, we have Mike in San Francisco who has made a grant or a gift for the entire fundraising drive, where he's covering basically all the expenses of the fundraising drive, things like the people who answer the phones and the database and the accounting and all that kind of stuff. He's covering all those expenses, which means 100% of your gift today and throughout this pledge drive, in fact, 100% of your gift is going to go right to Free Speech TV to be used to keep this network on the air and keep programs like our program going. 100%. And in addition to that, your match, your gift today gets doubled. I mean, it just isn't cooler. You can't get cooler than that. This is good stuff. So please call now. 877-378-8669 is the telephone number. We need your help. Free Speech TV needs your help. We come to you 3 or 4 times a year and basically, lay it on the line. And this is a tough time. We get that. Every politician on earth has their hand out. I'm every single day I'm getting an email from Trump. I'm getting an email from Biden and Harris. I'm getting, dozens of emails from lesser races, as it were, and some of them are pretty important to me. But I figure out a way to help out Free Speech TV, and I know you can too. Even $5 is a big deal. $10, $25, $50. Especially if you're staying home, if you're not eating out as much, maybe you could save the cost of a meal and send it off to Free Speech TV. A meal in a restaurant, $20, $50, whatever it may be. There is a whole selection of premiums with this pledge drive. With a $20 gift, you get your choice of one of 3 different goodies, either the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker. I'm a proud student of the Thom Hartmann University. The Fight for Democracy sticker, or the set of 3 stainless steel straws, so you will never again be disposing of plastic straws in ways that kill sea life. That's kind of cool. With a $50 gift, you get your choice. There are 3 things that you can choose from. Pick one. The Free Speech TV webcam cover, the tote bag, Change Never Happens from the Top Down, which is, kind of a paraphrase of Margaret Mead's famous saying, or the postcard pack, 5 postcards, Fighting for Democracy postcards. I think you'll find it fascinating. You'll like them. With a $75 gift, there's the Free Speech TV hat, and there's the Thom Hartmann Program white mug. Your choice of one of those with the $75 gift. With a $100 gift, you get 2 face masks that say "What We Can Grow from Crisis." With a $120 gift, you have your choice of a T-shirt, the Ask Me About Free Speech TV T-shirt, or your choice of one of 3 books, either my most recent book prior to the new book, which was The Hidden History of the Republican War on Voting, Greg Palast's book along those same lines, How Trump Stole 2020, or my newest book that literally just came out last week, which is titled The Hidden History of American Monopolies, How Big Business Destroyed the American Dream. And a lot of work went into that book, a lot of solid stuff in there. I think you'll find it very, very interesting. With a $240 gift, we've got a virtual meet and greet. We'll have one on October 14th and one on November 18th, where we'll get together for an hour and I'll answer your questions and we'll just talk. And these are just absolutely so much fun and fascinating and interesting, and you can show up on camera, or you can just show up on a phone call if you prefer, and I'll be there on camera and we can have a conversation. That's a $240 gift for that virtual meet and greet. And with a $360 gift, we've got the complete Thom Hartmann University Fall Gift Box. You get my book on Monopoly, my newest book. You get the Greg Palast book on how Trump stole 2020. You get the Change always comes from the bottom up tote bag. You get the Democracy sticker and the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker. So please call now, 877-378-8669, and make your contribution and help keep this network on the air. Thank you. So we need to be thinking right bacteria and viruses. Hi, Thom Hartmann here. In my new book, The Hidden History of Monopolies, How Big Business Destroyed the American Dream, I'll be taking you from the birth of America as a revolt against monopoly, remember the Boston Tea Party, to the largely successful efforts of both Presidents Theodore and Franklin Roosevelt and other like-minded leaders to constrain corporations' monopolistic urges, to the massive changes in the rules of business starting during the Reagan Revolution that have brought us into the cancer stage of capitalism. In the foreword by Ralph Nader, he says, "This is the most important dynamic book on the cancers of monopoly by giant corporations written in our generation." End quote. It's the 4th in my Hidden History series, available where all fine books are sold. And don't forget, democracy is not a spectator sport. Democracy starts with you. Tag, you're it. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you, and let's pick up some of your phone calls here. Bernie in Greenburgh, Pennsylvania. Hey, Bernie, thanks for listening to Sirius XM. What's on your mind?
Good afternoon, Tom. I was out taking a ride around my neighborhood today, and generally what I seen was within the last, let's say, 2 weeks, there was Veterans for Trump signs out there. Out of it, they were out. I rode past them today. They're all down. I think he found his Achilles heel. Yes, sir.
Wow. Yeah, I saw apparently it was a Facebook post that got cross-posted onto Twitter over the weekend, where this guy was talking about how a friend of his down the street, a neighbor of his that he knew, was a veteran, and he had a Trump sign out front. And in the afternoon, this guy went out and he literally watched this guy walk into his own front yard, pull the Trump sign out of the lawn, walk it over to the trash basket, and throw it in the trash. I mean, right in front of him and the
Tom,
God.
this has been a great day for me.
Yeah, I guess so. Bernie, thanks. You just made my day, too. I appreciate the call. It's great to hear from you. Marty in Windham, Maine. Hey, Marty, what's on your mind today?
Hi, Tom. I'm calling to suggest that when we speak of the virus and the pre-virus economy, that we use the term that Trump imported the virus. It has allusions to the economy, and Democrats should run on the economy. Use it. It's inequality. That's what counts. It's quality of people's lives. Anything else is not a viable economy.
Yeah. And his one big defense is that he stopped flights from China in April. And in fact, he didn't stop flights from China. 40,000 people came here after he, quote, stopped flights from China. He just stopped, some people from coming to the United States. But you have 40,000 people coming to this country, no problem. And not only that, at that time, it was ramping up in Europe. He didn't do anything about that. When he finally did, he did it at the last minute. And as a result of that, you had thousands of people in these giant lines in O'Hare Airport and JFK where they were just all infecting each other. And I mean, his incompetence is, truly breathtaking. I don't know how to describe it other than that. Marty, thank you. Well said. AJ in La Mesa, California. Hey, AJ, what's up?
Good Tuesday, Tom. Wanted to amplify a comment you made earlier about the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact. Assuming we make our way through the election cycle and through January 20th and come out the other side, the long game, in my opinion, for the nation is to get this thing done. There's 74 electoral votes away from it. Amazingly, in 2019, the governor of Nevada, the newly elected Democratic governor, vetoed what the Assembly, House and Senate in Nevada passed. And maybe you know
Really?
why. I certainly don't.
I have no clue, AJ.
Pardon?
I have no clue why he did that.
As you mentioned, Virginia was the last to enact it into law February 2020, and in Colorado there's a ballot initiative to rescind the passage of that by your friends and mine, and I don't know what other states that might be taking place in. But this is a legal way for the majority of Americans to move around amending the Constitution, which, anyway, so just wanted to thank you for mentioning that and looking for the long game, because thank you for what you do, sir.
Yeah, you're welcome, AJ. Thank you very much. Yeah, I often say the last Republican president who was legitimately elected was Dwight Eisenhower, because, Richard Nixon committed treason with the Vietnamese to prolong the war in 1968 to defeat Hubert Humphrey. Ronald Reagan committed treason with the Iranians to prolong the holding of the U.S. hostages to defeat Jimmy Carter in 1980. George W. Bush got committed election fraud. His brother threw 80 or 90,000 African Americans off the ballot in Florida in the weeks before the election, or the months before the election, because there were people in Texas who were felons who had similar names. And Donald Trump, obviously, with a little help from his friends overseas, became president. We have not had a legitimately elected president since Eisenhower's. So that would be since the election of 1956. But we also have not had a Republican president elected by the majority of Americans since George Herbert Walker Bush ran for his first election in 1988 at the end of the Reagan administration. He was Reagan's vice president. He ran for election. He won one term. That was the last time a Republican actually won the majority of the American votes. We all go vote for president, and we think, hey, whoever most of us want becomes president. No, sorry. Al Gore won in 2000 by 500,000 votes, 500,000 votes. Hillary Clinton won in 2016 by 3 million votes. But because of this archaic leftover from slavery and the early days of our republic, the Electoral College, we still have Republicans gaining power. And again, with the Senate, 50 million more Americans voted for a Democrat for the United States Senate than voted for Republicans. You would think that would lead to a Democratic majority in the Senate. No. you have a Republican majority in the Senate. Why is that? Because you've got a whole bunch of small states that are Republican. It's because you had a Republican president who brought both, who took the Dakota Territory and split it in half and made them both states in order to get more electoral votes, who brought Nevada in. That was Lincoln. I believe it was Grant who did the Dakota Territories. I might be wrong on that, but it was one of the Republican presidents. And I mean, this is where we're at. And this is the challenge that we're facing. Mary in Greenville, Michigan. Hey, Mary, what's on your mind?
I enjoyed your township hall on monopolies last week, but
oh, thank you.
Trump has issued an order to stop racial sensitivity and bias training in all the federal agencies.
Yeah, he saw a show about it on Fox News and got all hysterical.
Yeah, and now he's trying to push it onto the schools, where if the school wants to teach the 1619 project on racial sensitivity and the true history of slave ships in America, they'll pull the funding. And Senator Tom Cotton has even proposed a bill saying Saving American History Act of 2020, which would prohibit the use of federal funds to teach the 1619 project in schools. So he
the
wants
1619 project, the program that won a Pulitzer Prize for the quality of its reporting.
Yes.
It's astonishing.
He doesn't want that taught in the schools.
Right. These guys literally are saying that if we acknowledge that about half of our founders, the people who wrote the Constitution and the Declaration, were slaveholders, and that was morally wrong, if we acknowledge that we are being anti-American and we're hating America. I always thought
un-American and make America look bad.
Right, and I always thought that the way it worked, I mean, I've never been to an AA meeting or anything like it, but my understanding is that the first thing that you have to acknowledge, or one of the first things you have to acknowledge, is that you've done wrong, you're out of control, and you've done wrong as a result of that, and now you're going to try and do right. And I would think, looking at a history of slavery and a legacy of slavery, and then Jim Crow, and then redlining, and segregated schools and neighborhoods, and all these things, that you would say, we blew it for 400 years, and it's time for us to clean up our act. But apparently that's too much for Donald Trump. He is just running purely as a white supremacist, and it is so distressing. Anyhow, Mary, I got to run, but Brian in Pensacola, Florida. Hey, Brian, we got the last minute before the break. What's up?
Hey, Tom, and I always appreciate you. I just wanted to point something out. This whole thing with the military, it's in Trump's DNA. Frederick Trump, his grandfather, who was the one who abandoned Germany, his home country, so he didn't have to serve in the military, came to this country, made a small fortune, initially as a barber, and then made his way to the West Coast, involved with owning hotels
and ran a whorehouse
brothels and such. Correct. And then made his way back to Germany to marry, and at that time begged Germany to allow him to come back. And they basically, there's a letter that's been posted that I read that basically goes through the whole thing, where they say, nope, you did not serve as you should have. Guess what? Get the hell out. So,
yep.
Simply put.
Yeah, he was expelled for being a draft dodger, basically. This is his grandfather.
It's in his DNA.
Yeah, his father wasn't much better, and in fact, no member of the Trump family that I can find has ever served in our military, ever, period, full stop, world without end, amen. So, and he put into the prenup with Marla Maples that if their kid went into the military, she got cut off. I mean, it's nuts.
Listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
I'm not sure if Donald Trump hates military service, maybe as a result of being in a military-style high school, or if he just disdains it. And welcome back. Let's see here. Michael in Fort Wayne, Indiana, watching us on Facebook Live. Hey, Michael, what's up?
Hey, Tom, how you doing? I just had a quick question about what's your opinion on how can we get more civil discourse between both sides, the left and the right? Because it seems like we're just moving further and further apart the closer we get to the election.
Well, I try to encourage some of that on this show. We're constantly inviting conservatives to come on this show and debate me, with the promise that it will not devolve into name calling. I don't do that. And we will stick to the issues and that kind of thing. But we have not been able to find conservatives for months now who are willing to come on this program and debate me, which is really unfortunate because it used to be, we used to do it a couple times a week. It was a major feature of our show. And I think that everybody's just hiding. You've got a guy in the White House who is promoting hate, who is arguing that we can't be civil with each other. We can't be neighbors to each other. We have to have Second Amendment solutions to things. We have to shoot at each other. He's refused to condemn a kid who murdered 2 people and blew the arm off a third. It's astonishing. It's pathetic. And I don't think it's going to change, Michael, until Trump is out of office. And having a decent man like Joe Biden in office, I think is going to change the entire equation for this country. Leadership actually does matter. It really does count. So I don't see a solution beyond that. And I hope that everybody in Fort Wayne, Indiana, is signed up to vote. Cliff in Cherokee Village, Arkansas. Hey, Cliff, what's on your mind?
Hey, Tom, I was wondering why we couldn't modernize our voting system, maybe like going to a text. Then you'd have a record of who you voted for. And it'd be so easy to vote by phone. Everybody could do it.
Yeah, in theory. I think that probably internet voting is going to come. If you can bank over the internet, which is, presumably secure. There's not an epidemic of people having their bank accounts hacked. I don't see why you couldn't vote over the internet, except for the fact that it's the internet. And, it's since Trump deregulated the internet, it's filled with predators and thieves and people are going to do nasty stuff. So, and plus, we've already got a bunch of our voting systems on the internet, which is very, very dangerous. It's how Russia and other countries were able to penetrate it in the 2016 election.
Yeah,
but, I think
on the internet.
I don't think text. Yeah, I'm not sure the texting
state setup,
to vote. Yeah, I don't see texting. Ballots can be complicated things. You need to look at it and say, okay, what about this judge? What about this ballot measure? This proposal? I don't think texting. But I completely understand the direction you're going, Cliff, which is if we really want to have a functioning democracy, we need everybody to participate, or at least as many people as possible. In Australia, over 95% of people vote. Why? Because if you don't vote, your taxes go up $25 a year, and it's a small amount. It's kind of irrelevant, but hey, nobody wants to be shamed like that. And we can't do that here in the United States. Yeah, we can't do that here in the United States because it would violate the First Amendment. But figuring out ways to make voting easier. Here in Oregon, we've got one of the highest voting rates in the entire country. It's well into the high 60% range. Why? Because it's easy. I get the ballot in the mail, I fill it out over the kitchen table, send it off the next day, drop it in the mailbox out in front, boom. It's assuming you got a mailbox. We'll be right back. The hidden history of guns and the Second Amendment tells how the Second Amendment was written to protect Georgia's slave patrols. Welcome back. 10 minutes before the hour. Thom Hartmann here with you. Chante in Columbus, Ohio. Am I saying your name right?
Yes.
You're on the air.
Yes, you are. Thank you. What are your thoughts about Trump ushering in somebody a little bit more slide, a little bit more charismatic, that could upend our idea of what democracy is supposed to be in America? What are your thoughts to that?
I am very concerned about that, Chante, and I think you have identified probably one of the largest challenges that not only the Biden administration would face, but we as a country will face after Trump. And that is that Trump has revealed to us how far and he hasn't even gone as far as he can yet, and he still may. I mean, we still have 6 months until January 20th, but he has revealed to us how far a person in the White House, a man in the White House, can push presidential powers beyond tradition, beyond what any president has ever done in the past, and where our laws and our checks and balances are insufficient, where they're too weak. And had Trump not been Trump, had he instead been a very smart and competent fascist, a fascist, like Tom Cotton, who graduated from the Yale Law School and publishes pieces in the New York Times openly promoting fascism, had it been Tom Cotton rather than Donald Trump, we would not be having this conversation, Chante, right now about whether or not Donald Trump is going to turn America into a fascist country. Tom Cotton would have done it in 2 years. Trump took 4 years to get us damn close. And that's what scares the hell out of me, is that Tom Cotton or somebody like him is going to be the Republican nominee in 2024. And if we haven't hardened our democracy against that kind of thing, we're going to have a big problem. And the flip side of that, of course, is going to be, doing that is going to mean taking some power away from President Biden. And, that's going to be a challenge. I mean, how do we do this in a way that doesn't kneecap our own efforts to make America a better, more egalitarian, more inclusive society? It's going to take massive, frankly, Trump is doing a lot by executive order now because he doesn't control the House. If we can massively take over, if people turn out by the, tens of millions, over 100 million people show up and vote and really get out there and actively vote. If we can do that, then we can take the House and Senate in a big way. We can take a bunch of state houses and maybe get this national popular vote passed so that we can do away with the Electoral College and drop the modern day, the current Republican Party, this corrupt, billionaire-owned, fossil fueled party into the dustbin of history. But if we fail to do that, we're just going to see a repeat of this in 2024 or 2028 when Tom Cotton or some other Republican fascist comes along. So I am very, very concerned about it. Chante, I got to move along, but thank you. You nailed it. You absolutely nailed it. William in Sunrise Beach, Missouri. Hey, William, what's up?
It's like fascism is like people. We're all similar, but we're all unique. So our version will be different than any other version that's come along, although there may be similarities. That's how I just approach
I agree.
it. Okay.
I agree.
Thanks, Tom.
Okay.
Great. As always.
Thanks a lot, William. I think you're spot on. Yeah, you're welcome. Good talking to you. This is true, but there are some basic tenets of fascism. Use race or differences to divide people. When they're divided, anger one of those groups and encourage and incite violence, and merge every element of government you possibly can with privately owned business, so that privately owned business can shovel money to you. This is what Hitler did. It's what Mussolini did. It's what Franco did. It's what pick your dictator, right? It's what Erdogan's doing in Turkey. It's what is being done in Hungary. It's what's being done in Russia. It's what Modi is in the process of doing in India right now. That's fascism, and that's what Donald Trump has been doing for 4 years here. He just hasn't been as effective as he could have been, although he's done immense damage already to our country. Joyce in Garland, Texas. Hey, Joyce, thanks for putting up with my rant. What's up?
Why are we putting up with this man? This man who called every military person a loser, a sucker, and he didn't do anything. I have uncles. My whole family was in the military, and half of them died for our freedom. Is this going to be another Russian deal like he wants to play Putin? So
I think he's stepped in it here, Joyce. I think he's stepped in it. I think that this is a guy, his father sent him off to, they call it a military academy, but it had no affiliation with the military. It was just a private school where everybody wore a uniform that looked like a military uniform, and they hired a bunch of ex-military people. So they were pretend military. But nonetheless, the discipline was pretty rough there, and Donald hated it. They sent him off. His mom wanted to spend every summer in Scotland so that she could be a rich socialite, and she hated his father. And his father hated him. He didn't want him around. He was this, obnoxious ADD bully, ass, basically, kid. And so he sent him off to this so-called military academy. And I think out of that, Donald just grew to hate anything having to do with uniforms, and it's why, he threatened his first wife, Ivana, that, and Don Jr., that if Don Jr., there was actually a point where Don Jr. was thinking of joining the military. And Donald Trump said, if you do that, I'm going to cut you off from the inheritance. I'll disown you. He wrote into his prenup with Marla Maples that if the child that they had together ever joined the military, all the money would be cut off. I mean, I think it goes back to his experience in the so-called military-styled academy. But he has never hidden it. It's just that there's never been a spotlight shined on it. And now that The Atlantic has done this article and other newspapers have picked it up, I think veterans all across America are going, what the hell? And rightly so. Joyce, I'm with you. This is an outrage. My father was not a sucker when he joined the U.S. Army to go fight fascists in 1944. He was not a sucker, and neither were any of his colleagues. The suckers are the people who are still walking around with Trump signs. We'll be back tomorrow, same time, same place. In the meantime, don't forget, democracy is not a spectator sport. It requires all of us. And once again, let me say, however you're getting this show, please take a moment to support that vehicle. Let them know that you're listening. Tag You're It. We'll see you tomorrow.
You've been listening to Thom Hartmann. For audio and video archives, visit thomhartmann.com.
These companies support the Thom Hartmann Program. They are Omaha Steaks, gourmet you can trust. More information at omahasteaks.com, code TOM. CB Distillery, CBD for sleeping. More info at cbdistillery.com, code TOM. The Clean Phone Pro, phone sanitizer and charger. More info at thenewdealshop.com. Plexiderm Wrinkle Reducer, real science, real results. More info at plexiderm.com, code TOM. ExpressVPN, the VPN that just works. More information at expressvpn.com/Tom. And TEEF, TEEF, Smarter Pet Dental Health. For more information, teef.com, code TOM.
We say fight back!